Hey folks, and welcome to Subjective Thoughts. And our comic for today is Uncanny X-Men, the #1. This is the first series from 1963 by Marvel. Now there is fighting, near-death experience, mutant powers, and missiles in this one. So if you are in any way squeamish, you have been warned. Also, spoilers. Okay, here's our team. Now, of course, out of here, I know Mr. Jack Kirby and Mr. Stan Lee. The other two gentlemen, not really. But yes. Ooh, this will be the first time I read something Stan Lee wrote. Some comics I had is just Stan Lee Presents. Right, so I'll finally be able to tell Andrew what I think. Alright, so this is a quite a famous comic. This is the first, I think, appearance of the X-Men? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't think they appeared before this, so I could be wrong. And obviously, this is a facsimile. There's no way I'd be able to bloody afford an original, because, I looked at my comic shop. Fuck, they are expensive. Seriously, even ones that aren't in that good of a condition. The title I just read out is from my comic shop, because just the X-Men is a bit too broad with the amount of X-Men stories out there. It's like with Batman. There's just so many you have to specifically look. So, yes. Right, so didn't really know much about this one. I mean, I think I've seen it around, maybe, but when I saw the facsimile after my shop posted about it, I thought, you know what, let's get it. I get facsimiles just to have a taste of past comics, because let's be real, that's my only way to do it, because a lot of these are really fucking expensive. Yes, I got this one, and now I've finally read it. And it was a different experience. Of course, things are done somewhat different in the past. Alright, now let's get to the story. So we start with we see Professor Xavier sitting in a room. It doesn't move much. He summons the X-Men that he has with him. So here we only have Beast, before he was blue, uh, Cyclops, Angel, and Iceman. And that's it, just the four, yeah, the four of them. So he summons them and they have a session of training. We see their powers, how the professor is training them. He's also making sure that they can hear him in their minds. And he's also practicing it himself. Now, of course, they look different than what they do in more new iterations. And also, what I found interesting is that Scott's name, Cyclops, wasn't originally Scott Summers, he was Slim Summers. I wonder why they changed that. I mean, I like Scott. The Slim would have been fine too. Because I remember in the animated cartoon, Wolverine would call him Slim, I think. In one of the. Well, I only watched two X-Men cartoons, but in one of them, Wolverine called him Slim. I thought it was just a nickname for someone who's not. Not beefy. With muscles. I didn't know it was an actual name. I thought for a second, oh, they have the nickname for him here too, but no, this is Slim Summers. So that was interesting. I do wonder why they changed it later on. Is it somehow perceived as an insult or something? Because I know in the Hulk TV show, for instance, the Hulk is not named Bruce Banner. He's named David Banner. Mr. Castle explained this because Bruce was a derogatory name to the gayers back then. Just interesting. Right, so they're training, but then suddenly he tells them, "All right, we're done for today. We have a visitor," and they look out the window and they see Jean Grey, was going to be Marvel Girl. Oh yeah, I forgot we have Jeans here as well. Bobby, by the way, is the youngest Iceman. He's 16. I guess these guys are in their early 20s, I would imagine. So the president tells them, okay, go change. We're going to go meet our newest student. So Jean Grey comes in. She got a message from the professor. Sorry, for the professor to arrive, uh, but not to tell anyone besides her parents. So as we all know now, Jean has telekinesis powers, which she demonstrated. Also, the boys are very excited that she's there, except Bobby, who says, "Ugh, big deal, girl," which is interesting because he is 16. You know, hormones are aging. You'd think he'd be somewhat excited. So I thought, like, no. I mean, if he was 12, he'd be like, oh, cooties. And he's 16. Maybe they just wrote him like that. Yeah, he's like, girls. So they meet her. They're all very excited. Then Hank kisses her and welcoming her. She uses her telekinesis to spinning him. And it's just so funny to read and see that because I'm used to Hank McCoy from the animated X-Men TV show. And he's so drastically different, not just looks, but his behavior, his personality. And here he's like, oh, pretty redhead girl. I mean, he doesn't say it like that. It's just, how excited he is. So that was funny. Well, obviously, a lot has changed since 1963. I guess they get to know Jean, sorry, not Jane, Jean Grey. She's going to be Marvel Girl now. And the professor tells her about their mission. Their mission is to help people, save them with their mutant powers. As when the professor was young, his parents worked in a kind of factory with weapons, and that's how he developed his powers. And from a childhood injury, he became crippled. And he doesn't have. Interesting, he doesn't have a wheelchair here yet, he's just in this chair. He's not, well, first, he's not moving much, I guess, because he's focusing all his energy on his abilities. But yes, now while this is happening, we go to Magneto. There he is. Now he's here. He's the baddie in this one. He is a mutant, and he's how's Stanley write it? Homo superior. And he's like the humans are the Homo sapiens. So he has a plan. He's going to take control of this base. So he makes weapons, tanks go crazy, other weapons, missiles to fly, and ends up succeeding pushing away the soldiers and the generals out of there with his magnetic powers. And then we go to back to the X-Men. Jean is trying on her costume. The boys are passing by and take a peek at her. She's like, "What? Can't a girl get some privacy?" I still found it hilarious because you see her in the costume and she's like, Christian Dior wouldn't be able to come up with something better. I just saw that fight. I mean, look at the costumes. I mean, come on. They're not bad, but it's just like, Granted, I don't really can't put up in my head an image of what Christian Dior makes, but come on, Gene. Or maybe, or more like, come on, Mr. Stanley. Right, but before they can continue their arguing, the professor summons them. It's very strict here, like you have 15 seconds, no excuses. Okay, Professor, calm down. Well, they go to him, he tells them, we have to go. I heard a radio transmission about this base. You need to go and help the people there. This is your first mission. This is what we've been training for. So they take a special car. I guess this is the time before the professor had everything in his school for the gifted. In his fancy schmancy house. So they go by car, then they go to, I guess the professor has his own private air, what is it, landing? Airport, sorry, airport. Then they fly, but they don't fly a ship. The professor is flying them with the power of his mind, which was pretty cool. It also would seem a bit inefficient, you know? This is the first issue. So they reach the destination. There's a magnetic force field around the base. Scott approaches the general and says, "I'm the representative of the X-Men. Give me and my X-Men 15 minutes. We will get this Magneto out of your hair." So Scott uses his powers to break the force field. He manages, but he almost passes out. And then they all break in. Now Magneto thinks, I won't waste energy. I'll just send these heat missiles towards them. He sends them. They all, for some reason, just follow Angel. I think heat missiles, they'll go at a few targets. Well, except Bobby, because he's, you see, covered in snow. I love his original designs. It's quite funny. I mean, look at him. He looks like a walking thin snowman. So they start flying after him. Bobby tells them all, fly over here. He throws snow at 3 of the missiles. Wait a minute. Magneto fired 5 of them, no? Or was it 4? I guess it was 4 then. He throws snow at them and manages to disable the 3. But then there's still one after Angel, which Hank Beast yells at him, come over here. He grabs it with his feet. And then Jean takes it from him with her telekinesis and throws it to the ocean. The ocean's not far away. But then Magneto comes at them. He attacks them, but they counter it. And then there's this bat, and he disappears from them. They're like, where did he go? He sends a tank full of missile fuel at them. And it looks like, they're going to die. But then Iceman creates a barrier with ice. And then Magneto leaves there because everything's on fire now. He's trying to escape, but then you see Scott's beam of power from the underground, and the X-Men come out. So what Scott did is he used his powers to create a hole, a tunnel for them to go through. Quick thinking. Then they start attacking Magneto again, but he manages to escape. So they're like, okay, this time we beat him, but he has disappeared. Then they go back to the general. He's like, thank you. You don't have to tell me your identities. Oh, really? Thank you, Mr. General. I'm sure they were going to volunteer those to you. It's funny how some of this shit is just so obvious what they say sometimes in this comic. It's like, duh. Yes, he thanks them. Thank you, X-Men. And Scott's like, yeah, if you need us again, we'll be here. And that's it. That's where the issue ends. Ah, wait, no. The professor tells them, all right, come back home now. They're on the plane. We see Professor's head projected on the sky. And that's it. As the end of the first issue of the X-Men. All right, let's start with the art. So this is a cover. I think the cover is probably also by Jack Kirby in the sensational Fantastic Four style. And obviously this is a facsimile, so the original cover doesn't exactly look like this. They made changes. Of course, I do like the bit of purple there. I'll show you some art. I still can't get over the Iceman just pole dancing in. Okay, but now after looking at it, I realized that I think it's meant to show that he came from above, which, based on how the room is made, wouldn't make sense, I think. But Mr. Kirby should have drawn it up till here. Then at least it would, because it just gives off the feeling like Iceman was just pole dancing for the professor's amusement. Which, considering he's 16, would have been very inappropriate and also hilarious. Because he's not naked. He has boots for some reason. I guess he can't run with icy feet. Yeah, there's the art style. Yeah, and I've said this before. I'm not nothing personally against Mr. Kirby. I'm not a huge fan of his art style. I mean, sometimes I like what he does, other times not so much. Here it was mostly fine, I think. You can see they're adjusting him, but he doesn't have his wheelchair. Or even like any wheelchair, but this is the first issue, so I guess they see Bobby doing some tomfoolery. Look at him. I'm a snowman. I'll show you Gene. I won't show the whole thing, although again it's been like what 60 years maybe. So I don't think anything will happen. It's fun seeing the ads though as well. Those are funny. See, yeah, I mean, like this is cool, but some of the backgrounds are terrible, especially his piss yellow. Ugh. So there's Jean, Miss Jean Grey. And right, let me show you. There's Jean throwing him up after he kisses her cheek. She's spinning him. Can't understand what she's holding in her hand here. You see that? Like, is it a card or something? Or it's not a purse. It's way too thin to be a purse. I don't know. I mean, we don't see it again afterwards, but it's just fun. There's old Magneto. Professor looking gloomily. Ooh. And the ads. Yeah. And there's missiles. And this is the base that Magneto wants. So yeah, the art is fine enough. Some panels are nicer than others, though, considering they have more detail. I love this one here. I mean, surrender the base or I'll take it by force. And then he signs Magneto. Ah, such a cute cursive. Also, Mr. Magneto, you're supposed to write your name with a big first letter, no? That looks like a small M. Nah, never mind. But yeah, well, that's the art. I will say though that these kind of covers really should come back in style with some action on them. Nowadays we do have just more sometimes just one character even in that scene, which is not terrible, but this like kind of gives you an idea of what to expect. At least somewhat. DC has been pulling a lot of shenanigans where they done clickbait before YouTube even existed, and they used it in comics. All right, now to the story. So the story was fun. Holy shit, there's so much writing in the old comic books. Like nowadays, not that nowadays there's very little writing. There's still writing, but it's such a contrast. Where today there's a lot less dialogue. Back then there was a lot more dialogue. Although, granted, maybe this is just how Mr. Stanley wrote. Chris Claremont also writes a lot. When I first opened it and I didn't read the names, I was like, is this written by Claremont? So long. Yeah, back then it was a lot more really an experience to read comics. In terms of it was like having a mini book. Because this is just 20 something pages, but you have so much content, so much dialogue and all that to read. Unlike in now where I recently read a Batman comic just yesterday, and there's a lot less dialogue in it, which made it made it a shorter read. A shorter read it made it. So yeah, it's just different, but still nonetheless enjoyable. Uh, right? Yes. Sorry, I growled past my. Yeah, nonetheless, it just makes it. It's still enjoyable, but yeah, it's just such a stark difference from today. Which makes sense. This was in the '60s. Yeah, it makes me wish they kind of gone back to some of those things. Nowadays, like Mr. Gray says, you can buy a comic book and read it in 5 minutes. So it's just kind of not. Yeah, it takes it takes out of it, but it makes it less like a long reading experience you'll enjoy for like a little while. Especially comics where there's no dialogue whatsoever. Though those are good too. Yeah, I enjoyed this. It's very interesting to see. Yeah, because the X-Men obviously went through a lot of fucking changes over the years. I mean, behold. Yeah, I think so far my favorite version of that. I haven't read many X-Men comics. Just I think this one and then a few more. But still, I still do love the animated version best so far. I love how the characters there were there and the designs and everything. All right, so that is it, folks. I'm sure many of you read this, but I'd still like you to hear what you thought of this one. If you read it when it came out, possibly, what did you think? Did you like it? How was it back? You know, when it first came out back then. Why is Scott? Why was Scott used to be named Slim? If you know, let me know. All right, so that is it. Now remember, collect what you're passionate about, and share it on YouTube. Bye.